You know, Justin Timberlake already brought sexy back, so we can't do that. So
let's not.
We're gonna bring wet flies back instead. Howdy friends, Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters in the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and I'm coming at you from southern Ohio, just about an hour south of Mad River Outfitters. I'm sure you've heard of that. And we are here with our great friend, Mr. Tim Flagler. You probably couldn't tell from behind. You're used to seeing him with a ponytail, I know.
Yeah.
So are we. I don't know what's happened to him. But you know what? He's still, despite the lack of the ponytail, he's still the Tim Flagler that we've all come to know and love. And we've just wrapped up a morning of fishing here on Clear Creek. Caught some rainbows. We did a little competition where we were pitting Euro up against American nymphing. American. And we didn't learn anything other than when all else fails, pull out mop flies and squirmy wormies. But we caught some rainbows. So now we are going to embark on a new project here this afternoon. Try to catch a few more fish because we've been having so much fun. And we are going to fish light, delicate rods, click and pawl reels, and traditional wet flies. So follow along, Tim and I, traditional wet flies in Ohio.
Can't wait.
Got to click in. Are you familiar with that old family circle fly tying book?
I've heard enough about it, Brian. I don't believe I've ever seen it, but I've heard many people talk about it. Kind of as the Bible from back in the day.
Oh man, it was, you know, that was, I've joked around before that when I was a kid, that was my Playboy magazine.
Really?
Oh gosh.
So not really a Bible so much.
Yeah, different perspective. The flies were actually line drawings.
Really?
But they were all old, the Coachman, the Professor, the Grizzly King, just all these old traditional wet flies. And you know, Ryan Ratliff that works at the shop, Ryan said that he used to get that book out of the library when he was a young kid.
Really?
Yeah.
That was ages ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, if it was ages ago for him, it was...
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I've really been thinking about this for quite some time. So I started tying like crazy a bunch of the flies from that book. And I've just been going nuts on tying traditional wet flies. I used to fish them a lot when I was a kid. One of the first trout I ever caught on a fly rod was on one wet fly, Bennett Springs in Missouri. So I've been really working on trying to bring wet flies back and using them a lot more in my own fishing and a lot in my own fly tying. They're so much fun to tie. I mean, they're
fun to tie and they're fun to fish too. Just kind of down and across. Yep. No, you know.
Yep. So
wait for the bite.
So that's what we're going to do here right now, friends. I have a leader wallet of poly leaders. I really like using these poly leaders for wet flies. I tie all mine unweighted. So I'm probably going to go with a, probably like the medium sink or the light sink here, maybe the intermediate. And then of course all you do is just run tippet off these things.
Right, 2-3 feet.
Yeah, 5 foot butt sections. I got a 2 foot tippet. I'm fishing a 7.5 foot. I'm going with a 7.5 foot 4-weight Orvis superfine fiberglass. You've got a
3-weight, same thing.
Yeah, mine's a 4. Sorry, mine's a 7.5 foot 4. You got a 7.5 foot 3 in the graphite.
Right.
So very similar. We've got click and pawl reels. I've got a Cortland 444, one of my favorite fly lines on there.
And this is an Orvis line, well, Scientific Anglers.
Yeah, right.
Weight forward, 3-weight.
So with these, you just loop the leader on and run that short tippet, and then just kind of guide it through, swing it, a little bit of mending. So we'll talk about it when we get on the water. But man, I think this is just going to be the ticket for these rainbows that are here in Clear Creek. So
super. Let's go.
Let's go.
Can't wait. Nice.
Man, I love click and pawl reels. It's not a bad fish. Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh, that was a lot. That was a lot like fun. Wet flies are traditional, if I'm not mistaken, from Scotland and England. It's just what people used years and years ago, before they really knew much about aquatic entomology or knew much about the life cycles of bugs. They just created, which is exactly what I did. That was on that golden pheasant. I just took golden pheasant, put a tail, orange floss. I've got an orange beard and then golden pheasant on a topper.
Perfect.
And they're real simple. You know, we're gonna do some studio stuff on tying a couple of different wet flies. And I'll continue doing that, but it's a super simple formula. You've got a tail, you have a body, you have a beard or legs, and you have a wing. That's the formula for most, if not all, wet flies. And it's just, they're so much fun to tie and so much fun to fish. What I was doing here is trying different levels in the water column to get my fly to sink to different depths, and then trying to control its depth via mending, and then letting the fly swing. And sure enough, this is perfect water for this here too. This is really great. What fly do you have on, Tim?
I have a little hare's ear wet. Old pattern, just seems to work. And one fish on the swing counts as 5 on the nymph. I just love swinging flies.
That was so much fun, and yeah. I love trying to control the depth and control the speed of the drift. You know, I've been reading Sylvester Neames recently. Dave Hughes has a really great book that kind of covers the history of wet flies and swinging wet flies, and it's just so much fun. And I think it's a lost art, and I think we need to bring it back.
Yeah. Love just kind of waiting for the grab too, you know?
Yeah.
No looking at some dumb little piece of plastic or a brightly colored piece of monofilament. You're just kind of down and across waiting for a tug or a nip or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
just a lot of fun.
That was a tug.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no mistaking that, and that was just so much fun. So, you know, since Justin Timberlake already brought Sexy back, we're gonna bring wet flies back. So Tim, that was great fun, albeit short afternoon of fishing traditional, call them English wet flies.
Yep.
I got a fish, you got a fish.
Yep.
We had to cut it short due to some rain coming in, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, it's just...
It was fun.
I think I said it earlier, one on the swing is worth 5 on the indicator, or on the nymph.
Yeah.
Love swinging flies.
I do too. And you know, I mentioned this before that I grew up fishing that way. I mean, we talked about this book earlier, and this was like a Bible to me when I was a kid. I mean, I think I went through and tried at least to tie most of these flies, and I've kind of had a resurgence. And I think I think that wet flies, they've just kind of fallen out of favor in the United States.
Yeah, and they kind of come and go. It seems like I've seen it before. I remember early 90s, there was kind of a resurgence. Oftentimes it's a book that somebody writes or some change in equipment or whatever it is. That kind of goes in cycles, and they'll come back in favor, and then they'll kind of die out again. But it's a great way to fish, a great fun flies to tie. There's just a whole lot to like about wets.
I don't know how to put it. It's actually a very simple way to fish.
Yeah, it's you're actually feeling the take. Which if you've been staring at a little plastic ball, no offense to you indicator fishermen, or a brightly colored piece of monofilament in a sighter all day long, you have no idea what's going on around you or anything else. With wet fly fishing, you cast down and across, maybe a mend or two to get the fly down deeper and working, and then you can look up and just wait for the bite. And feeling that bite, there's something about that grab that's kind of electric, and it's I really like it. It's very tactile thing.
It's really very, very much like a streamer bite. It's almost like a cross between nymph fishing and streamer fishing. But I found myself really trying to, depending on how far I would cast upstream, would dictate how the flies would sink, how far they would get down, and then I would start to mend and control the swing. And I could kind of back up or move a little further out or make a longer cast and just cover different pieces of water.
Right.
I really find that I'm able to fish in different waters, different depths and different structure, say, of water than I would be able to with an indicator rig.
Oh, I think absolutely, and you can position that fly, with an indicator rig. In most nymphing, you are really drifting. The idea is to go drift with the current, and just downstream at the same rate as the current's fly. And you can certainly do that with the wet flies, kind of a little more upstream cast and let it drift down. But you can also have it so you're swinging across the fish's view in front of a rock, or have it angle kind of across the front of the rock. You can present the fly in so many different ways when you're swinging flies, and it makes certain situations it's just so much fun to fish because there's so much you can do and so much water you can cover in different ways. And I really like that being able to really think about how that fly looks underwater, how fast it's moving, how deep it's moving. There's a lot to it.
There is. But let's just talk real quick for those of our viewers that might not really understand what a wet fly is. Why don't you just real quick, it's a real simple recipe for what a wet fly is and how it's constructed.
Yeah, my artwork is going to be terrible here, folks.
I'm sure it's to scale.
Yes, absolutely to scale. So all it really is most of the time you start off with a tail on the fly, and then you'll build the body of the fly. A lot of them have some kind of rib that goes across, looks like segmentation, helps to keep the fly durable. There'll often be a hackle collar. A lot of times it's just a beard down here, but sometimes it will come up like this as well. And then there's a wing. It could be a slip wing, in other words, from like a mallard feather. It could be like a flank feather from a wood duck feather, more fibers, but oftentimes it's a wing that looks something about like that, and little markings on it, like a March brown, just beautiful little markings, like natural bait fish or insects are going to have. And as a package, it just presents really, really well. And when it's dead drifted downstream, might resemble an insect. When it's swung across stream, could be a bait fish. It could be any number of things. It could be dragonfly larva, all sorts of different stuff.
Could be a merger.
A merger, very versatile pattern.
A drowned adult.
Yep.
Or crippled adult. I mean, just like I said, just super versatile. And there's a ton of things it could be. and also depending on how you tie it, what materials you tie it, what colors, it can represent a variety of different. If you leave the tail off, maybe it's a caddis. There's just so much versatility, so much so that we probably did away with wet flies here in the shop just because they didn't sell well. I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago. And I made sure the other day to clear out an entire row.
So you're ready for wet flies?
We're back in the wet fly game. Here's the one that I caught a fish on today. And this is just, it's that same kind of recipe. It has a tail. It has a body, which I made out of floss. It has a beard, and then it has a wing. Mm-hmm. So I just took golden pheasant, and I'm sure this is something that I copied somewhere along the way. I've seen something like this before. Golden pheasant for the tail, orange floss. This is hen saddle and dyed orange, and then I used the golden pheasant again. And then I took Amherst pheasant and did a similar version, which might have been good today for the light Cahills that we saw hatching.
Yeah.
And that's it was just something that I concocted sitting at my vise, and I wanted to put it on today. I could see it in the water. I could see what depth I was getting it to, and it was just so much fun to fish, and lo and behold,
it worked.
I caught a nice fish on it. This was called the Grizzly King.
Yeah. I actually got my fish on the Grizzly King.
Did you?
A bigger version of that, big size 8, which, was sometimes with wets, you need to go bigger, off-colored water. I also should say, if it's okay, is, the guys who were originally coming up with these techniques and the flies were from England and Scotland, and they were river keepers, and they were guys that were feeding their families on trout and grayling.
Sure.
And so they had a system where they have one fly that's here with the wing, and they daisy chain them, and so you could have 2, 3, 4 flies all in a line like this, and it was called a brace of flies. Mm-hmm. And I've watched them. It's really interesting when you see one fly in the water and it's tracking like this, and then you have a second fly that's behind it. This one goes over here. This one takes just a little while to catch up, and you get this system going back and forth. Mm-hmm. You add a third fly to it, and it becomes this kind of serpentine deal that adds a whole nother level of motion to the flies as they're swinging across the stream, and it's really effective.
A whole nother level of the amount of water that you cover per drift.
Right, and with 3 different flies,
right.
And you could go different sizes, different colors. It's a wonderful thing.
So the way I swing these, I want to talk just real briefly about it. I use the airflow poly leaders. I think they are super versatile. Of course, they come in floating. I carry them in floating, intermediate. They have a slow sink, a fast sink, and a super fast sink.
Right. And different lengths too, right?
Yeah. I use the 5 foot because I'm usually using... I like to use traditional equipment. I've got a fiberglass 7.5 foot 4-weight. Since I'm not high sticking necessarily, I can get away with a shorter rod. I love traditional click and pawl reels. And then off these poly leaders, you can just run anywhere from say 2 to 4 foot of tippet, and I'm almost always using 4X or 5X off that. It casts just fine. It gives the fly a lot of motion in the water. Plus, it doesn't matter really what your tippet is when you're pulling on the fly.
Yeah.
But that's all I do, and I think is so versatile. I most often use the intermediate and the slow sink. Those are the 2 densities in those poly leaders that I use most often. Of course, you do have to loop them to the tip of a fly line, but not a problem there. It makes it easy, and then if I can change very quickly if I move downstream and I feel like I need a faster sink rate for that particular hole. So, but you were just using a straight mono leader.
Yeah, straight mono leader, just a 7.5 foot. I think mine was terminated in 4X tippet down at the bottom, and if I needed to get a little deeper, I crimp on some split shot, you know, about, I don't know, 8-10 inches above the fly, and go with that. I don't generally like to use split shot. I prefer to use poly leaders or Versa leaders, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, the split shot works as well.
Yeah. Well, it's a super simple rig. Anybody can do it. These poly leaders are not outrageously expensive. You can outfit, and they last forever and ever and ever. You can buy a whole setup of them and have them for season after season. Okay, well, I think it's possible, friends, that we have said almost everything that you could say.
About, like, everything.
About it. Yeah. Absolutely. So Tim and I are here to tell you, I mean, we've had so much fun doing this and kind of revisiting, for me, my youth and my growing up and learning to tie wet flies and catching my first trout on a wet fly. And it's so easy, and there's no super intense technique that you have to learn in order to do this. Throw the fly out there, learn to throw a mend to get your fly to the depth you want it so it's moving at the speed you want it, and point your rod at it. Let it swing.
Wait for the bite. Wait for the grab.
It's so much fun. We promise you. You should try this. Look into tying wet flies or look into buying wet flies if you don't tie. Get yourself a couple of poly leaders or just a 7.5 foot 4X leader.
It is fine.
It works just fine as well. I prefer to tie these unweighted.
So do I.
Yep. And I think most people do, but you can certainly make them weighted if you want to so you can avoid the split shot. So really easy. Really fun, really effective, and hey, you're paying homage to the history of our sport.
Yeah, the tradition.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, you know, Justin Timberlake already brought sexy back, so we can't do that. So
let's not.
We're gonna bring wet flies back instead. So Tim, it was great being with you again. Really appreciate it. It's always a blast. Look forward to you guys coming to town.
Always look forward to it as well.
We can't thank you enough for being a part of Mad River Outfitters, for being a part of what we do here on YouTube, and most of all, for your friendship.
Oh, yeah. You as well, Brian.
Yeah, well,
it's been great.
Much appreciated. As always, friends, you can check out Tim at tightlinevideo.com. You can find him on YouTube at Tightline Video. You can also tune in over at Orvis, and you always see this guy or hear this guy over at Orvis. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you don't miss an episode. Hit that like button. That helps us out. And stay tuned. We've got a ton of content, and we've got even more special guests coming up very soon. So stay tuned. Thanks for being here.